So hi there, welcome to lesson 4 in module 5. We'll be looking at completeness, very interesting checks using tabulate command, collapse command, and contract command. How do we check for it? So that's what we will be doing. So I will start with what I call a tale of 20 shapes, 20 different shapes. You can see that they vary by type. Some are squares, some are circles, and they also vary by color. So some are orange, some are yellow, some are red. That's how you can see them. So let's see how the contract command works. And to do that, let's move those items down. So let's say we wanted to sort them out by shape and color. I mean, type and color. Oh yeah, it's still shape. Type of the shape and the color of the shape. And then we just do a frequency of counting. So let's start with the red. How many reds do we have? We have 4 red squares. We have 1 orange square. We have 5 yellow squares. Now when you add both all this so far, we have 10 squares. So it's apparent that we have 10 squares and 10 circles. So just follow me. And then we have circles. 4 red circles, 3 orange circles, 3 yellow circles, and the total would make 20. So we can position it this way. And this is how the contract collapse data works. Basically, this is how it works. It can count. It can collapse those cells in this form. And so you get results that look like this when you use the command. So you would find all the combinations. So red square, orange square, yellow square, red circle, orange circle, like that. All those combinations are there. And that's how it works, basically for contract and collapse. So I want you to picture this at your mind every time, how we collapsed those 20 different shapes into a summary table like this. Now, the whole idea we said was completeness. So we're trying to count. So if you are supposed to have 4 red balls or 5 red balls, now you know one is missing. If you're supposed to have 2 orange squares, you know one is missing. If you're supposed to have 10 yellow squares, you know one is missing. So sometimes you want to count completeness within subgroups. That's why I keep on mentioning context. And that's very important for you guys checking. But as we go deeper and deeper, I'm sure it will get clearer. So let me just hold back on some other further information I want to give you. Just establish what we just did with those objects. So let's go back to those objects again. And let's kind of twist it a bit, cross tabulate it. So we have the squares on one side, all the types of shape on one side, and all the color of shape on one side, just like, So please, nothing has been altered, nothing has been changed. So please just look closely at what happens. Nothing different from the screen you're about to view now. So what did I do? I just put all the reds in one column, all the orange in one column, all the yellow in one column, all the squares in one row, all the circles in one row. So like I made like a mini database again, Now I now have attributes and entities. So the color, the types of shapes now are my entities, and then the colors are my attributes. So this is how the tabulate command operates. It gives us tables like this. Now, tabulate, that's when I have 2 variables. But if I just have only one variable that's differentiated, that's fine. And if you look at the end of the square row, we have 10. If you look at the end of the circle row, we have 10. So that's basic, fundamental, that we love to do. So that's it basically. I hope you can get as much information as you would love here. And we'll now look at the 3 of them together. Now, why are these commands important? Whether it's collapse, which I just showed you, and contract, or tabulate. So let's look at an ideal situation. There are some people who work in specific locations. So location 1 has 30 people. Location 2 has 30 people. Location 20 has 20 people. Location 2 group 1, sorry, location group 2 group 1 has 20 people, location 2 group 2 has 20 people. So if we want to check for completeness, those who came to work on day 1, this is very easy. We know the data is not complete. The total is already telling us 80. Now, most of the time, people check total of data and said, well, I mean, this this is um this is not complete. This is so obvious it's not complete. So 26 out of 30, 24 out of 30, 18 out of 20, 12 out of 12. Please always remember that the first column by my left is the complete breakdown of what people should be by location. Now in day 2, we get these records. Now these records too also show that the data is not complete because now we have overcounted. Maybe we have duplicates, maybe something is wrong here, because you can't have 37 people working in day 2 in a location where you should not have more than 30 people. So like I told you before, completeness is not just it's up to, it should just be exact. So if it is more than 30 for location 1, we should know why. If it's less than 30 for location 1, we should know one. You should also know why. So that's the whole idea. We should have 30, 30, 20, 20, 20, then total 100. Now, the most deceptive for many data managers sometimes is when we have a total of 100, but when we look at the individual breakdown of the groups, something is wrong. For example, in location 1, group 1, which is the yellow group, we have 32 people. That's above the 30 required. We have 22, which is fine in group 2, location 1, group 2. Location 2, group 1 has an excess of 4. Location 2, group 2 also has an excess of 2 because both of them should have been 20. But when you add the totals, you have 100. And someone say, oh, data is complete. Nope. It has to be complete overall, or better still, start within the groups, make sure they are complete, and ultimately it will be complete for the groups. So this is one very important check that people miss out, especially the third case, where they just say, oh, we are supposed to reach out to 100 people in database, and we have done that. But within the subgroups, are they complete? Are they okay? It's very important to check. And that's why these 3 commands we just shared will help you do just that. They are more powerful than count because they are able to help you see the breakdown of all of them in one table. Now, count can do that, which we will show you in the overview practical, but with less stress compared to these 3 commands. Now, let's look at the powers of the 3 commands. There's tabulate, contract, and collapse. So, if you wanted to do a breakdown with more than 2 variables, you can use the contract and the collapse. For tabulate, you may have to do a bit of advanced, or what we call a variant, which we do not have for this course, just keeping it simple. In tabulate too, the data set is not changed. So what happens, as you will soon see in the practical session, is that the data set changes its form. It's not the data set started with, and you can't unchange it. It's like, yeah, for now, just let's take it out. You can't just go back and say, I'm no longer contracting or collapsing. Once you contract and collapse, the data set will change. And then collapse is very powerful because it gives us other summary statistics that we may need, mean, median, mode, and some stuff, percentiles, apart from frequency. But contract is just limited to frequency alone. So these are just small changes. They are detailed. I mean, in advanced classes, we'll talk about it in more detail. But the full graphs is just to understand how they help us to check for completeness of data. So let's look at tabulate. So it will create a one-way or two-way table of frequencies. Basically, that's what it does. And this is the syntax. So if you have a one-way, just specify one variable. Now, of course, ideally, now that does not mean you cannot use continuous variables. Ideally, they should be categorical variables. Could be string or categorical variables. And then there's also volume 2, which means if you are doing a two-way table, like you remember there were types and there were colors, so you can rewind and check that. So it helps us with that. So let's look at that, and then there's if and in statement too. So in the first example, we use two variables. In the second example, we only use one variable. So that's how tabulate basically works. So let's look at the syntax for contract. So it creates a data set from a data set, because what you have in front of you is data set, but by the time it works, contract works, it creates another data set consisting of the combinations of variables in that value you specified, and a new variable that contains the frequency of each combination. That's how contract works. And it's very straightforward. Contract var list. Now I told you can do multiple variables. Very key. Okay. Now let's move to the next one. Examples. So you have contract, two variables, contract, one variable. But please note, contract can be up to 3, 4, even 5 variables, depending on how you want to group them. Okay, we'll move on to collapse. So collapse also, just like contract, creates a database and then gives us summary statistics of each of the combination. Now you have to specify here. In contract, you don't specify. So you may say, I want to use the count summary statistics. I want to use the mean. So I want to know the median for red circles, median for blue squares, So all that can be done with collapse. So the syntax is also looking like this. You can pause the videos, because we are showing three commands in this video, and I'm sure you would understand when we are done with the practicals too. So these are the examples. So you can see that in collapse, you see those what's the word? Brackets, that's where you specify what you want to do with the combination. And then there's a syntax or option for the by values where you group. So you can look at two continuous variables, find their means across division and region, or you can find their means across region. So we're going to take a deep dive into Stata practically in this session, and we're going to look at these three commands. I suggest you watch it again. Watch the whole theory I just mentioned again, so you can help to differentiate between the three commands. And I hope that when we do the practical session, we'll be able to instill deeper levels of understanding. So I'll see you in the practical session. I hope you are getting pumped up and excited as I am. So hi there, welcome. So let's look at the what's the word? Let's look at this women longitudinal study data, because now we want to address three powerful commands: tabulate, contract, and collapse. Tabulate, contract, and collapse. So without much ado, let's move on straight. So we will load the data, which we have done. In the editor mode, the data has loaded. I always by default want to know the number of observations I have. 2,246 women, 17 variables about race, about marriage status, and all that stuff. So we want to use tabulate, contract, and collapse to test for completeness. Now, I've told you over and over again, there must be some context, some detailed information that greatly helps you to measure. I've also told you, and because this one zeroed down to the subgroups, and that's what we're really testing, to ensure that everybody or every group is accounted for. So I'm going to start with the tabulate command, which is quite straightforward, and you use it to find out if within the groups we have some level of completion. So I'm going to do tabulate with one variable. So just race. So when I tab race, now I've told you too about abbreviations in module 2. So you can tabulate, you can abbreviate rather commands like tabulate, and the abbreviation is called tab. To see how that works, it's good to go to the main Windows view. Now when you run, it puts everything in the table, and I like this, it gives you the total too. So the number of whites, the number of blacks, and the number of others. So we're only using one variable here. Now, but we want to tabulate or cross tabulate rather. I'm sure you have heard that term. Race across marital status. So I will pick that married from here and drag it here. So I'm combining two things, you know. So maybe I should put married before race and I will show you the differences. And well, let's just leave it as it is, Control Z, race and married. So this becomes the row, this becomes the column. So basically, it breaks down the entire races according to each of the races according to the marital status. So the race is the rows, the married, which is the second variable, is the column. So just remember that word RC. R standing for rows and C standing for columns. So if I did it the other way, I put race after married and run again. So you see, it's 2 rows by 3 columns, basically, but the same totals. Nothing is really different from what we just had. If we scroll back up, it's still the same total, only that the rows have become the columns and the columns have become the row. Simple, just like uh, forgotten the word. We have transposed uh, the outlook. So that's how tabulate basically works. Now it's deeper than that, but the goal of this course is just basically to talk about completeness. Are all the whites complete? Are all the blacks complete? Are all the other races complete? Are all the singles complete? So if, according to your records, you should have 800 singles and the others should be married, then you have to find out which of the races probably is defaulting, all of them or some of them. So that's how it basically works when you're trying to measure for completeness. Now, there are going to be a series of videos coming up, and that's why I want you to subscribe, hit on the notification button, where we just take one command and explain it, all the context and the uses, so that you can optimize Stata powerfully. So that's it basically about tabulation. So let's now take, now the challenge with tabulating, you cannot go more than 2 variables, especially 2 categorical variables. If you observed, I used categorical variables, but you can also use string variables, which we don't seem to have here now, but we can use it in the time to come. So now let's look at contract. We're just going to take the same stuff. I can just take, let me take married for once. Just let's start with married. Contract married. So the immediate thing you find out is that your data set has changed. Now the data set has 2 variables, 2 observations, and that's it. So contract changes the data set. Interesting. What's interesting is that you can't go back to what you had before. So it alters the data set, and it's a bit different from tabulate. So in tabulate, if I said tabulate married, my data was still there, and you can find the breakdown of that tabulation here, 8041442. But when I run it up to contract level, this is what it looks like. So it has contracted. So it will create the variable married. Where are you? Singled 804, married 114, which you found in tabulate. If you rewind a bit, you would see it there. So that's the challenge of contract and collapse. So I will add race to this. So if you are white and single, it counts you. If you are black and single, it counts you. If you are other and single, it counts you. So that was also the same thing as, let me just add so you can compare. You can compare both. So tab married race, data does not alter. So you can pick, so for example, single other is 8, married other is 18. Now when you contract, and you browse, go back to the editor mode, you can see single order is 8, other married is 18. Now, the other challenge is that for tabulation, it gives you a total. This does not give you any total. So, I hope you are learning the differences. So, the only thing is that this gives you a summary. You can easily export to Excel, send to your client. This is the breakdown of how these things are distributed. Maybe to prove a point that it's complete or it's incomplete, you know. Maybe they are supposed to be 500, 500, 500 or something, you know. I don't know. So that's how you produce the evidence. Now, let's go to collapse. So remember, we're just testing for completeness. So collapse command, interesting. Now, because the data is altered, collapse cannot work until, so I just take contract behind and then comment it out. I will now take collapse married. Now, and then use the word count. So let's see how it goes. So you see, collapse married counts everybody, and that was why I said there was, so you can see the difference. I don't, yeah, so I could use let me just go back here first and explain. So it's better to use an ID code, which is interesting. You know, we have an ID code here, and I think it's also unique. We just finished talking about duplicates, so it's interesting that we have an ID code here. So it's better to use ID codes for counting. Because what he did now, it went to the married and counted. But if there was a skip, which we're going to explain in the next module, it will not be a good, it's not best practice. So whenever I want to count, I use an ID variable to count, because every observation should have an ID variable. But if there's a tendency of a skip or it will not be complete, then it cannot be used. So I will now say by married. Yeah. So let's run it again. So you see, it gives me the same thing. The only thing here is that if you remember, for contract, it was underscore frequency. That's underscore FREQ. Go check it out. Just rewind the video. You'll get it and see that that's the difference. So the outputs are the same. They've given me different. I mean, but the way the command is being used is different. So if I create a space here for race, it will break it down by married and race, which you can find here. So basically, this is how it works. So this is how it works basically, and it's very important that you will work with this in mind. I hope it has been very interesting. So there are many things you can experiment here, and I always use that word a lot when you're working with data like this. So let's go back to CSUs and look at the data we have. Let's look at it in the editor mode. So I will just go back here. So we have other categorical variables: has been married, never been married. We may want to find out if they ever graduated from college, if they're from the south, if they are not in a central city, or what industry they belong to. You know, maybe they were supposed to be three per industry. You know, want to check all that. So that's how we check for completeness. So please don't forget all the theories we built up. There will be an expectation, there will be some background information, domain information. That's the word I use. And that is used now to help us determine what is the best approach to evaluating the completeness of the data. If they don't tell you that they went to 5,000 people, how do you know what you're going to measure for completeness? So you have to have some background. If an event happens, it's supposed to happen once every month throughout the year, then you should have 12 occurrences of that. So sometimes they don't give you a direct info. You have to read it up, you have to find some context in the materials or documentation that was given to you with the data. So that's what I try to do too. When I give a task, I try to give some background. So it helps you to know if you have enough information to investigate completeness. So I hope this has been useful. Please play around with this data, especially this women's data. NLSW88 is already pre-installed on your Stata. Try the unions, try other stuff too. I don't want to, I'm tempted to go into collapse, but I will be going from the purpose of this particular um, model, which is completeness, because collapse is so powerful that you can put anything here in the square, I mean, in the brackets or parentheses, and very powerful. That's the best I can say right now. So experiment, build your confidence, boost your confidence, try occupation, try unions, try three levels, which I had already mentioned. So I think I can just do that too. So let's say we do race and let's just add union to it. So it can break down by race, married, race, and union. And when you do that here, this is what you find. You know, white single non-union, white single union, white single missing. That they are not, they are neither union or non-union. They don't have that information. So it can break down on three levels. It can contract on three levels too. If you could add union here. So that's the beauty of collapse and contract. Go back, check the theories we discussed in the presentation. We already mentioned this. So Stata is at the mercy of your creativity. That's my strong belief. And just think of ways you can engage it. And let's see what people have done. You can. I don't know if it's possible to send a screenshot of what you did on your comments, but just let me know in the comments what you have learned and what you are doing. So don't forget to hit the notification button. Forget to share. So when new videos like this come out, you get informed. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in the next video.